Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at implementing the Cognex UR cap with a universal robot. I have here a UR5E set up with an ORMRON RG2 gripper, which is just holding a little pointer just to be able to prove our positional accuracy. I've got the camera mounted, as you can see, on the side of the wrist, and I've already got that positioned where I want to take my images, and I've already got it focused and the light levels and everything set, so that's good to go. Now I've also got my UR set up already with the UR cap. Your first step on this is going to be to go into settings. Under UR caps, you're going to click plus. I'm going to go into my USB stick, and you can see that I've got the Cognex UR cap 131 there, and I would click on open, and it'll install that, and it's going to reboot the robot. So I've already done that to save us going through that again, and as you can see, it's visible there on the teach pendant. So I am happy with that. The first thing I'm going to do, now I've got the robot in the right position so that I can take my image. I've taken an image and I'm happy with my position. I'm going to go into program, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a move, and I'm just going to set this waypoint. Okay, I've saved that, and I'm going to rename it camera image. That just allows me to get back to this same point next time. Then I'm going to go over to installation. Now this is where here in the connection, I'm going to type in the IP address. But before I get into all that, I'm going to move over to my camera software, and I'm going to set that up ready for connection to the UR. So moving across to Insight Explorer. As you can see, I've got a nice image. If I trigger that, the image hasn't moved, so that's a good image to start with. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to locate this. So all I've got is the Visicon logo there, and I'm going to use the dot of that middle eye as the position that I'm going to pick up on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate part. I'm going to use PatMax Redline because I've got it available, so why not? I'm not going to pick up the whole thing. I'm going to pick up the two dots and the tops of those letters there. That should do fine. I'm just going to click OK. So I've trained this pattern in, and you can see the section down here where it's saved. I'm going to leave it called pattern 1. I'm going to go into settings, accept thresholds 50%, that's fine. I'm not going to bother changing that. Rotational tolerance, I'm just going to change that to 45 degrees, plus or minus 45 degrees, just to give us a bit more movement. And essentially, that's pretty much it, apart from the fact that I'm just going to move my point here so that it's in the middle of my eye. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on that just to make that a little bit easier. Zoom in so you can see it. And I'm going to move my offset. Horizontal offset moves it left and right, obviously, and then the vertical offset going down on that, the minus number obviously moves us up in the image. So I've done that. I've moved across a little bit too far. So that's good enough for this. So that's now set. Now I could use any tools for this, anything that's going to give me positional feedback. So I could construct a point using 2 lines. I could use a blob tool. There's any way that you can get a coordinate out, you can basically select that coordinate to be the one to use. Now I'm going to go to inspect part. Now this is the important bit when using the UR cap. I'm going to come down to calibration tools, and I'm going to select robot, and I'm going to add that. And it's going to ask me, okay, what point is it that you want to use? And you can see that it's flagged up anything that's circular. It's flagged that up. So if I click on that in the same way as it would do with a normal tool, it's going to add a fine circle tool to that. But because I've already got my pattern tool there, you can see I've got a green crosshair. So anything marked in cyan would be a new tool that's going to add and then the point marked in green is my existing tool. I'm going to select that and click OK. So now I've got this new tool called Calib 1, and we can see over here on the results table that it's bringing information in from pattern 1. If I wanted to change that at any point, I can just use this select point button down here. Under settings, I can give it a file name. So this is where we're going to actually save the calibration data to. So I am just going to call this URCap. And you can see that it's going to create a file on the flash memory of the camera called URCap Calib. And if I wanted to, I could add the date and time to that, which unless you've got a date and time server setting the date and time on your camera is absolutely no use at all, because it will just say it's 1970. So I'm just going to leave that turned off, but I've got that set. Now, the only other thing I need to do is in my setup images, or setup image, I need to make sure that my trigger is set to manual. It's set to camera by default. I need to make sure it's set to manual. That's important. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do File, Save Job As, and I'm going to save this off to my camera, and I'm going to call this URCap Calibration. And that's my job file finished for this section. It's important, though, that I turn this online. So I'm online and I'm set to manual. Now I can go back over to my UR, and on this installation step under Cognex, I have typed in my IP address already. If you're not sure of the IP address of your camera, you can go on Internet Explorer. If you go to Help About, it will give you the IP address of the camera. So I've typed that in, and then I can click refresh, and assuming the camera's there, it's online and it has the Calib tool on it, it will connect to it and it will verify that by giving us a green tick. The next thing I need to do is I need to set up my region. So I've got my Visicon logo in the center of my screen at the moment, but I need to set up exactly what is my workable frame for my robot. And then the URCap is going to walk through multiple points within that. I think it's 25 points. Yeah, 25 points that it goes through in order to get the frame and get the robot coordinates versus the camera coordinates and calibrate those. So the first thing I need to do, as you can see here, we've got 3 steps. I need to find step 1, which is top left. So I'm going to select here set point, and I'm going to move my robot. Make sure that you've got your active TCP is set to the correct TCP point. Because I'm using the ORMROBOT gripper, it's nice and easy to do. So I've got that set already. There's countless videos available to show you how to set up your TCP correctly. So I won't go over that now. And then on my camera, I am just going to set it to repeating trigger, which is the kind of yellow and blue arrows going round and round next to the standard trigger button. And I'm going to click on that. So that's now set my camera off and it's triggering away. And I can now move my robot. I can move it over to one side and then move it up. I don't need to go right into the corner. Just, you know, that's good enough. Maybe a little bit more. So I've set my top left. I can OK that. I can now do 0.2, which is going to be my top right. So I'm going to move my robot over to the right, something like that, and I'm going to OK that. And now 0.3 is somewhere along the bottom of the image, so I tend to just go with bottom middle. So if I get that in the middle, something along those lines, and I'm going to say OK. So that's basically given the robot the frame in which that it's going to work. And now I've done that, I'm going to turn off my repeating trigger. So I'm going to leave that now for the robot to control. And now the simple step is just hit start calibration. And what it's going to do is it's automatically going to move my robot for me. And it's going to go through 5 images going down the left-hand side, and then the next row, and it's going to do that 5 rows, 5 columns, and it's going to map those 25 points that it's got, and it's going to work out a calibration grid to save into the camera, and that was the file name that we gave previously. So it's going to save that, and then we can reuse that. Man, the last row. Okay, it comes up on the screen. Calibration is finished. Do I want to stop the program or continue? I can just say continue, that's fine. And now we're good to go. So that's now calibrated. Now I can save that job just to make sure that I've got that saved off. So next time I want to come back and calibrate the camera, I can just reuse that job. And that's saved within the calibration file that's saved in the flash memory on the camera. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to utilize that within the program on my robot. So I've got a bit of a change now to do, swapping back to Insight Explorer. You could at this point just start a new job just to save me doing everything again. All I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that calib 1. Delete calib 1. So I've now just got my pattern tool. And before I do anything else, actually, I'm just going to save my job as, instead of URCap calibration, I'm just going to call this URCap underscore demo. And I am going to come over to setup image. And under calibration type, I'm going to select import. And I'm going to go and select the URCap calib.cxd that we used previously. And now all my outputs are going to be in robot coordinates rather than in camera pixels. So the only other thing I've got to do is under inspect part, under maths and logic tools, we have robot guidance as an option. And we're going to click add. And I'm going to zoom in just to make it a bit easier to find. And I'm going to click on my green cross. Now you can see here that's not quite in the center. Turning on a bit of scaling in the pattern tool would sort that out. Okay. So I've now set up this guidance tool and that's ready to go. I can now turn this back online. In fact, before I turn that back online, I can save that, then go back online, and we can zoom out. So that is my Insight Explorer job complete. I'm now going to come back over to my robot, and I'm going to go into my program steps. So I've got this camera image position that I saved earlier. So I'm just going to click on move here, and I'm going to move the robot. And then I can trigger the camera again and just make sure that I'm happy with the position of that, and I am. So that's going to be the first point of my job. In fact, for me, the first point of my job is I'm going to add a before section, and I am just going to set my RG2 grip down to 5mm because I'm continually gripping this part. I just need to tell it to do it at the beginning of my program, otherwise I may get an error later on. So the first thing I'm going to do is when I start my program, I am going to move to my camera image position. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take an image and work on that data, and I'm going to do that under URCaps by selecting Cognex camera pose, and you can see it adds this whole section into my flowchart here, and I can give the camera pose result a name. So by default it calls it Cognex result, and you know what, that's good enough for me. I'm just going to leave it like that. Below that you'll notice that we can do things like we can lock lock Z, for instance, is ticked and greyed out. Because it's only a 2D camera, we can't take into account Z. We're working on the plane of our TCP. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to lock rotation as well, because I'm just interested in getting to that dot. I'm not worried about rotating to match the actual logo itself. And the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to set this reference pose option. I need to tick the fact that the robot is mounted, and I can do that once I've set the reference position, because at the moment it doesn't matter whether it's mounted or not, because we're just using the position relative to where the camera is at the moment. So if I do set reference pose, so what it's basically saying is, based on the image that I've taken, where am I going to go? So if it's a pick and place, I found it there in my field of view. I need to move to go and pick it up. Where am I going to move to? So for that, I'm going to do set reference pose. And I'm just going to slow this down a little bit so I don't end up crashing into the bed of the machine. And I'm going to move that across. And I'm going to move it down. Now, bear in mind that this isn't actually going to go to this position, because we're not using Z. It's going to go to this position that's pretty good above the dot of my eye. It's going to go to this position, but up at the plane of where I took my camera image. So I'm going to click OK, and I am going to put that the camera is robot mounted. Okay, so I've done that bit. So I've then got 3 steps. One step is, once I get the result back from my camera, if the job passed, then I'm going to move to Cognex result. That's absolutely fine. If the job fails, what am I going to do? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to set a pop-up. I'm going to click in that, and I'm just going to say camera failed. And then in the no response, I'm going to do the same thing again. Just pop up and no response from camera. You might want to do something else. You might be doing it that if there's no parts there, you're going to turn on a vibratory feeder or something like that. But in my case, all I'm going to do is flag up an error. So I've done that, and I've done Cognex result as the place I'm going to go to. After that, once I've gone to that point, I am just going to stick in a wait command, and I'm just going to wait there for 1 second. So I'm going to go to my point, wait for 1 second, go back to my camera image. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a wait after my camera image as well. And I'm going to wait there for 3 seconds. Okay, so now I've got my program pretty well set. I'm just going to do save and save all. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Cognex Demo. And now I've got that set, I am just going to run that. So here we go from the beginning. It's going to move to the camera image. I've still got this turned down at 40%, obviously, until we've run through it and I've just checked that we're okay. And I'm going to click play. So I'm going to wait 3 seconds, take my image, I move over the top of my eye of Visicon. Wait a second. Wait there for 1 second, move back, wait 3 seconds. Now, the only thing I need to do is a relative move, because I want to actually almost touch down on the dot of that eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that there, and I'm just going to make sure we are in the camera position. And then down here under my under my Cognex result, I'm going to do a move. No, I'm not. under my Cognex result, I am just going to do another waypoint. And this waypoint, instead of a fixed position, is going to be a relative move. And I'm just going to set the point. So a relative move you set by, if this is where I started, this is where I finished. And then it will make that same move relative to where you're now positioned. So for me, I'm just going to move down to the bed. So I'm going to select the point of where I am. And I'm going to set the point of where I'm going to go to. And that for me is just going to be a straight down Z move until, there we go, I'm just above the table. I'm going to OK that. And that's all I'm going to do. So what I've basically done is I've moved down 100 mil. Happy with that. Hit save, save all. Hit play. We'll move back to our start position. And we will play. So we're waiting 3 seconds. We're taking an image. And we're going down and we touch just above the eye. And we moved up. I'm going to move that slightly. We've taken an image. And we move down. And that is all there is to it.